So imagine this. What if a country decided, to build its entire digital future, not on the usual centralized databases, but on that tech famous for cryptocurrencies? And then what if they use that technology to protect every citizen's identity, track product histories? Sounds pretty out there, huh? Well, it's happening. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're doing a deep dive into Vietnam's, well, frankly, groundbreaking national blockchain platform. It's called NDAChain, and it's just moved into active deployment. We're talking securing digital identity, government records, the whole 9 yards. So our mission today, to really unpack how this pretty complex tech is being used in a very practical, real-world way by national government. We'll pull out the key insights from our source, a really great piece from Brave New Coin, to get the what, the how, and crucially, the why behind this huge project.
Yeah, and what's really compelling, especially for you listening, maybe working in public service, is that even though this is Vietnam, the problems they're tackling, they're universal. We're talking core challenges, data security, making digital services actually work efficiently, fighting fraud, things you probably grapple with too. So this deep dive, it's a fascinating case study. It shows how another country is innovating to serve its people better. And that could give you some really valuable insights, as you think about similar challenges in your own work, maybe modernizing systems or just building more trust with citizens.
Okay, let's get into it then. We mentioned the scale Vietnam, over 100 million people, data spread across thousands of agencies. That's a lot. So why blockchain? Why go for something seemingly so cutting edge, maybe even complex, for such a massive data management job? What were the fundamental problems they were trying to fix here?
That's the core question, really. What were the weaknesses in their old systems, the traditional centralized ones, that pushed them to this? The source points to a few critical issues. First, and maybe the biggest driver, cyber attack risks. Significant ones. I mean, just imagine all that sensitive data for 100 million people in one big digital pot. A single breach. Catastrophic. Widespread chaos, loss of trust. It's a nightmare scenario for any government. Second, scalability. This is a huge pain point, right? Everywhere. When you're managing massive, constantly growing data sets for a whole population, especially now with everything going digital, traditional systems they often can't keep up. They become bottlenecks, slow services, rising costs. It's not sustainable. And third, there's this issue of limited global integration. Their older systems, often working in silos, struggle to connect smoothly and securely with international digital platforms. And that's becoming more and more critical, for trade, tourism, global services. And it's really important to see this in context. Vietnam isn't off on its own doing this crazy experiment. No, they're actually joining a trend. Over 50 other countries are building similar blockchain infrastructure or seriously exploring it for government use. So it's becoming recognized as a way forward for government modernization, looking at the security, the transparency, the efficiency it can offer, especially for public data and services.
That context is super important. Yeah, those issues, vulnerable data, scale, interoperability, they resonate, I think, for many in public service. So, okay, if blockchain is the path they chose, how do they actually build this thing? How does NDAChain work day to day for a nation that size? It sounds complex, but let's try and break down the core parts.
Absolutely. The innovation is really in how it operates. So NDAChain is what's called a layer one permissioned blockchain. Layer one just means it's the base layer, the foundation. Think of it like the main highway system for their digital infrastructure. It's where the core transactions happen. And permissioned is key for government. Unlike, say, Bitcoin, where anyone can join, here, participation is strictly controlled. You need permission to play a role. And they've gone for this interesting hybrid model. It combines government oversight, absolutely necessary, with significant private sector involvement. The idea is to get the best of both, state authority and stability, plus private sector speed and, well, innovation. How it runs. On 49 validator nodes, these aren't just random servers. They're run by a calculated mix. Key state agencies alongside some of Vietnam's biggest corporations, names like Sun Group, Zalo, Masan, Misa, Savico, VNPC, big players. And these nodes, they're the workhorses. They maintain the distributed ledger, the shared, secure record of everything. They run smart contracts for automating processes. And crucially, they host the identity verification modules. And these modules link directly into Vietnam's existing national ID system, the VNID. So it's all woven together, aiming for a unified identity approach.
That public-private mix, having big companies running validator nodes. That sounds powerful for innovation, yeah. But does it raise any questions, maybe from a governance angle? How do you ensure data privacy stays central when you have different stakeholders, maybe with different incentives?
That is a critical question, absolutely. And any government looking at this kind of model has to tackle that head on. It's always a balancing act, right? Private sector efficiency versus public trust and accountability. Now, the source doesn't spell out the exact conflict resolution mechanisms, but the fact that it's operated by the Ministry of Public Security's Data Innovation Center under the National Data Association's strategic guidance, that suggests a pretty strong government hand on the tiller. Plus, their explicit commitment to international standards like GDPR, that signals a foundational focus on privacy, regardless of who's running a specific node. But yeah, for anyone considering this, clear rules, strong audits, defined ethics right from the start, that's absolutely vital to keep private partner incentives aligned with the public good.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, let's get technical for a second, but keep it practical. How do they ensure speed and security for 100 million users? You mentioned a consensus mechanism, proof of authority, and something about zero-knowledge proofs. For public servants thinking about system upgrades, can you break down what these mean in practice for a government? Why are they so important?
Great question. So the consensus mechanism, how the network agrees on what's true, is proof of authority, or POA. Think of POA like a highly vetted exclusive club. Instead of thousands of anonymous miners competing, POA uses a small, known, pre-approved group of validators. In this case, those state agencies and big corporations we mentioned. Why do this? Speed and efficiency. It makes transactions incredibly fast and cost-effective, which is absolutely essential when you're operating at a national scale. You're essentially centralizing trust with accountable parties to get that performance boost. And then, layered on top for security and privacy, they use zero-knowledge proofs, ZKPs. These are fascinating. ZKPs let you prove something is true, like, say, proving you're over 18 for a service without revealing the underlying sensitive data, like your actual birth date. It's incredibly powerful for privacy, especially with identity data. So this POA plus ZKP combo aims for both efficiency and strong security, vital for government stuff. And the performance stats, they're pretty impressive, 1,200 to 3,600 transactions per second. And latency, the delay, is just half a second. That's fast. And beyond the core tech, it's deeply integrated. We mentioned the link to the VNID national ID system. It also complies with global standards, like the W3C standards for decentralized identifiers that helps make their digital IDs potentially recognizable internationally, and GDPR for data privacy. Even though Vietnam isn't in the EU, adopting GDPR signals a serious commitment to protecting user data, building international trust. That's something every public service everywhere is aiming for, right? Building that trust. Nguyen Hu, who heads tech at the National Data Association, he put it bluntly. He said this blockchain will be critical, his word, for Vietnam's digital society and economy. Basically, a protective layer for the nation's live data. That shows you how foundational they see this.
Okay, so we've got the why, the problems they faced, and the how this is impressive tech backbone with POA, ZKPs, the nodes. But let's bring it down to earth. What does this actually mean for an everyday person or a business in Vietnam? Can't just be cool tech for tech's sake. What are the practical uses? How did it improve public services or daily life?
Right. This is where you see the direct impact, the tangible benefits for people and for service delivery. NDAChain enables two key applications right now. First up is NDAChain. That stands for digital identity. This lets citizens securely prove who they are for all sorts of online things, accessing government services, maybe opening a bank account, signing digital contracts, you name it. They even have a mobile app, NDAChain, where someone can verify another person's identity in seconds. Now, for you, working maybe here in Canada or elsewhere in public service, think about the current process for identity verification. Applying for benefits, getting health records, just updating an address across different departments. It can involve paperwork, delays, frustration sometimes. A system like NDAChain could potentially streamline all that dramatically, cut down fraud, make the whole citizen experience smoother, more secure, less hassle, and it directly tackles things like online scams and fake accounts. That's a huge win for public safety, and building trust in digital interactions a core goal for public services, surely.
That sounds like a massive improvement for both efficiency and trust, definitely. What's the second big application?
The second one is NDAChain. This is all about product authentication. What it does is assign a unique digital ID to individual products, and it meets international standards like GS1. It's even compatible with the EU's blockchain system, EBSI. This is huge for Vietnamese businesses, especially exporters. It lets them join global supply chains with confidence, proving their products are authentic, builds trust internationally. Essentially, every item gets its own verifiable digital passport. You can track its journey, usually via a QR code or maybe an RFID chip on the packaging. Think about the challenges customs officials face, right? Or the damage counterfeiting does to local economies and consumer safety. NDAChain hits those problems directly. That level of transparency is a powerful weapon against fakes. It helps helped build real trust in made-in-Vietnam goods, which is obviously a big deal for their economy. So connecting it back again for you, the listener, in public service, both these applications, D and Trace, are fundamentally about boosting trust and efficiency. In public services, in commerce, these are exactly the kinds of goals you might have for the services you deliver, making things safer, faster, and more trustworthy for the people you serve.
Yeah, you can really see the practical value there. Okay, this clearly isn't just about launching a couple of apps. It feels like part of something much bigger. What's the grand strategy here? What's the thinking behind such a massive national undertaking? How does it position Vietnam on the world stage?
You're spot on. It's definitely not just a tech project in isolation. It's rooted in a very comprehensive, well thought out national strategy. They officially established their national blockchain strategy back in October 2024 through Decision No. 1236. So it's formalized policy. And the ambitions, they're high. They want Vietnam to be a regional blockchain leader by 2030. They're aiming for specific targets, like having 20 well-known blockchain brands emerge domestically, setting up at least 3 dedicated blockchain testing centers, and becoming a top 10 Asian blockchain research hub. It's serious stuff. And a really important theme running through it is Make in Vietnam. They're focused on building their own tech capabilities, their own digital products. This ties into their digital technology industry law, prioritizing homegrown tech. It's about digital sovereignty, self-sufficiency, fostering their own ecosystem. And one more piece of context that's quite relevant. Vietnam already has huge crypto adoption. We're talking over 20 million people holding crypto. That's like 20% of the population, 5th highest globally. So there's already a base level of public familiarity with blockchain concepts, which probably helps smooth the adoption curve for something like NDAChain. And comparing their approach globally is interesting. You look at China's BSN, the blockchain-based service network. That's very centralized, state-controlled. Then you have the EU's EBSI, European Blockchain Services Infrastructure. That's more focused on regulation, cross-border uses, maybe closer to a decentralized public model in some ways. Vietnam's chosen this kind of hybrid model. It blends that public-private collaboration we talked about, but with strong adherence to international standards and deep integration with their existing national ID system, VNI ID. It feels less like a pure experiment and more like a pragmatic, long-term plan for their core data infrastructure and digital economy. And that really underscores, for anyone in public service, the value of having that clear long-term national strategy when you're bringing in transformative tech. Not just piecemeal projects. A holistic vision matters.
That's a great point about the different national models.
Very insightful. Okay, so this is huge, ambitious. What's a timeline look like? How are they rolling this out? And what's next for NDAChain as it matures?
The rollout is definitely phased, which seems smart for something this big. The target is full integration into their national data center by the end of 2025. That's a major milestone centralizing it, making it accessible nationwide. Then, during 2026, the plan is to expand it out to local governments and universities across Vietnam. So pushing adoption deep into the public sector and even education. That could help train the next generation of users and developers, too. Looking further out, future phases are set to focus on things like workforce development, absolutely crucial. You need skilled people to run and build on this, plus fostering more international collaboration, and developing what they call Layer 2 applications. These are apps built on top of the main NDAChain foundation. Things like more advanced digital identity wallets for citizens, maybe giving them more control, or sophisticated anti-counterfeit tools linking directly into supply chains. Even platforms for digital notarization, streamlining legal stuff. And what I think is really smart is the open architecture. They're actively inviting startups, tech companies, innovators to come and build new services on the platform. That fosters an ecosystem, right? It lets the platform grow organically with new ideas and uses. Governance-wise, it's run by that Data Innovation Center within the Ministry of Public Security, guided by the National Data Association. So oversight is there, but hopefully enabling innovation too. The whole roadmap really shows that phased approach to big digital change. And it highlights just how important those public-private partnerships and open innovation can be for government initiatives that aim to serve citizens better.
Wow, that really paints a picture. An incredibly ambitious, but also seemingly very practical, deep dive into Vietnam's move with NDAChain. Using blockchain for national data sovereignty, identity, product tracking. It's a bold approach to modernizing government for its people. Definitely a fascinating blueprint for any public service organization to look at.
Absolutely. And it leaves us with a really important question, one that public servants everywhere are thinking about. You know, with rising cyber threats, the sheer challenge of managing enormous amounts of data and citizens demanding better, faster, more trustworthy digital services. What role can technologies like blockchain really play? How can they help build that trust, protect privacy, and genuinely enable progress for all citizens? It's worth considering how this specific example from Vietnam might spark some ideas, perhaps shape your thinking about innovation in your own public service context. Maybe how you serve citizens right here at home.
Exactly. Think about the elements from Vietnam's strategy, that hybrid model, the phased rollout, the focus on digital ID or product authentication. Could parts of that be adapted? Could they inspire new initiatives closer to home? How could a similar thoughtful approach maybe enhance trust, streamline services, or better protect citizens here in Canada or wherever you're listening from? Definitely something to mull over as you continue your really important work.